The year is approximately 40,000 BCE. We're in the heart of the Carpathian Mountains, in what we now call Romania. The air is thick with the scent of damp limestone and the pungent smoke of a pine wood fire. Outside, the world is locked in the crystalline grip of the last glacial period. Massive ice sheets, kilometers thick, crush the northern reaches of the continent, driving every living soul southward into narrow, treacherous valleys. In the flickering amber light of the cavern known today as Oase, the Cave of Bones, a figure sits in silence. To a modern observer, this individual is a paradox. Their face is a mosaic of eras. They possess the high, rounded forehead and chin of a modern human, yet their jaw is remarkably robust, and their molars are massive, reminiscent of a lineage that had inhabited Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. This is not a pure sapiens. This is a bridge between worlds. For over a century, the story of human origins was told as a drama of replacement. We were led to believe that our ancestors, the Homo sapiens, emerged from Africa like a tidal wave of biological perfection, sweeping across Eurasia and erasing the primitive Neanderthals without a second thought. It was a clean, clinical, and, frankly, arrogant narrative. We wanted to believe we were the sole heirs of the earth, untainted by the blood of those we deemed lesser. But the bones in this cave tell a different story. When scientists finally peered into the genetic code of the Oase 1 mandible, they didn't find a pure modern human. They found an individual who had a Neanderthal great-great-grandparent. This discovery didn't just nudge the needle of history, it shattered the compass. It proved that in the cold, dark nights of the Pleistocene, our ancestors didn't just compete for resources. They looked across the fire, saw a kindred spirit in the other, and chose to merge their destinies. To understand why the discovery at Oase was so explosive, we have to examine the total replacement, or out of Africa dogma, that held the scientific world in a vice grip for decades. This theory proposed that modern humans arose in total isolation in Africa, developing their unique cognitive and behavioral traits in a biological vacuum. When they eventually migrated, they were supposedly so different, physiologically and perhaps mentally, that interbreeding was either impossible or negligible. Why was this theory so fiercely defended? In my view, it was a form of evolutionary exceptionalism. We wanted a clear boundary. We wanted to be able to say, this is where the human starts, and that is where the animal ends. By casting Neanderthals as a separate, extinct branch that contributed nothing to us, we could maintain the illusion of our own purity. In the halls of academia, proponents of this model were relentless. When the Oase skull was first analyzed by Sylvia Constantine and her Romanian colleagues, the out-of-Africa traditionalists launched a scorched earth campaign against their findings. They argued that the Neanderthal-like features, the broad mastoid processes, the specific curvature of the frontal bone, were merely unusual variations or pathological deformities. They refused to accept that a sapiens could carry the traits of a Neanderthal because, in their world, the two were as different as oil and water. But nature does not care for our tidy boxes. Biology is messy, porous, and opportunistic. In the wild, closely related species hybridize all the time. Sapiens and Neanderthals shared a common ancestor only about 600,000 years ago. In evolutionary terms, that is a mere heartbeat. To imagine that they could coexist in the same valleys, hunt the same mammoths, and seek shelter in the same caves for millennia without ever mating requires a level of special pleading that borders on the absurd. The traditionalists weren't just defending a theory, they were defending a border that nature had never actually drawn. The connection becomes even more profound when we look beyond Romania. Thousands of kilometers to the southeast, in the Zagros Mountains of modern-day Iraq, lies the Shattering cave. Here, archaeologists found the remains of Neanderthals who lived 60,000 years ago, 20,000 years before the Oase individual. When you compare the cranial architecture of Oase II and Shattering I, the similarities are haunting. The long, low vault of the skull, the specific way the occipital bone at the back of the head is shaped, these are not random coincidences. While Oase II is genetically a modern human, his physical module, the blueprint of his skull, falls squarely within the Neanderthal range. This suggests the existence of a Eurasian contact zone, a vast geographic corridor stretching from the Middle East into the heart of Europe. This wasn't a place of a single accidental encounter. It was a landscape of recurrent interaction. For 10,000 years or more, the frontiers between human groups were not lines on a map, but zones of overlapping culture and biology. Think about the implications. When the first sapiens entered the Balkan Peninsula, they didn't encounter a blank slate. They encountered people who had survived 300,000 years of fluctuating climates. The Neanderthals knew where the flint was highest quantity. They knew which berries were poisonous and which roots could heal a fever. They had a language of signs, sounds, and symbols that had echoed through the European forests for eons. The out-of-Africa model often treated the expansion of modern humans as a conquest, but the Oase-Shattering connection suggests it was more like a slow, complex absorption. It was a braided stream of humanity, where lineages diverged, moved across the landscape, and then, inevitably, flowed back into one another. The Oase individual was a child of that confluence, a living testament to a world where different did not mean separate. If interbreeding was common, what did it actually do for us? Was it just a biological curiosity, or was it the secret to our success? The answer lies in what I call the evolutionary shortcut. Imagine a group of sapiens arriving in the freezing plains of Central Asia. Their bodies, evolved for the warmth of the African savanna, are ill-equipped for the sub-zero temperatures and the lack of ultraviolet light. Normally, evolution would take tens of thousands of years to select for traits that could survive this environment. But there's a faster way: breeding with the locals. We see this most clearly in the ghost DNA of the Denisovans, another group of ancient humans who lived in Asia. In the high altitudes of the Tibetan Plateau, the air is so thin that most people suffer from hypoxia. Yet, the Tibetan people thrive. Why? Because they possess a specific variant of the EPAS1 gene. This gene didn't evolve in sapiens. It was borrowed from the Denisovans. When our ancestors met the Denisovans, they didn't just exchange ideas. They exchanged the very tools of survival. This happened in Europe with the Neanderthals as well. Our immune systems are arguably the most complex part of our biology. When we entered Europe, we were exposed to a host of new pathogens, viruses and bacteria that our African immune systems had never seen. But the Neanderthals had been fighting these bugs for millennia. By interbreeding with them, we acquired ready-made immune genes. We inherited a biological shield that would have taken us 1,000,000 years to build on our own. This reframes the entire narrative of human history. We didn't win because we were better than the Neanderthals. We won because we became them. We absorbed their strength, their resilience, and their local adaptations. We are not a replacement for the ancient humans of Eurasia. We are their most successful iteration. We carry their ghosts in our blood, and their survival is our survival. One of the most telling aspects of this story is how the media and the scientific establishment reacted to the DNA evidence. Even today, you will find documentaries or articles that described the hybridization between sapiens and Neanderthals as shocking or unexpected. But why was it a shock? As we've discussed, for much of the 20th century, the idea that human groups interbred was the standard view. Anthropologists like Carlton Kuhn or Franz Weidenreich saw the fossil record as a messy mosaic of traits. They expected to find hybrids. The shock was actually a byproduct of a specific period of scientific dogma that insisted on a clean, isolated replacement. When a theory becomes so dominant that it is treated as a fact, any evidence to the contrary feels like a revolution. But in this case, the revolution was actually a return to common sense. The shock was a reflection of our own biases, not a reflection of the prehistoric reality. We had spent so long trying to prove how different we were, but we forgot how biologically similar we must have been. This is a recurring pattern in the history of science. We create narratives that are morally or intellectually satisfying, narratives of progress and purity, and then we try to force the data to fit them. But the fossils don't lie. The DNA doesn't lie. The Oase individual doesn't care about our theories. He exists as a stubborn, beautiful reminder that our history is not a straight line, but a tangled, glorious mess. To make this tangible, let us look at the reality of life 35,000 years ago. This was not a world of mass migrations or epic wars. It was a world of small bands, perhaps 20 to 50 people, moving through a vast, silent landscape. Contact between groups was rare. When a sapiens band encountered a Neanderthal band, it wouldn't have been a meeting of two species. It would have been a meeting of two groups of people. They would have noticed the differences, of course. The Neanderthals were more muscular, with a different rhythm to their gait. Their tools were made with a different logic, the Levallois technique, yielding thick, sturdy flakes. The sapiens might have had longer-range projectiles and more ornate bone carvings, but they would also have seen the similarities. They both used fire. They both buried their dead with care. They both looked at the stars and saw patterns. In the harshness of the Pleistocene, isolation was a death sentence. To survive, you needed allies. You needed to exchange members to prevent inbreeding. You needed to share information about the movement of the mammoth herds. In such an environment, the biological barriers we imagine today would have been irrelevant. A capable hunter was a capable hunter, regardless of the shape of their brow ridge. A mother's care was the same, whether she had a chin or an occipital bun. We see evidence of this cultural blending in the archaeological record. The Shattering industry in France, for example, shows Neanderthals adopting and adapting sapiens-like tool styles. We see sapiens using Neanderthal-style pigments. This was a porous frontier. It was a world of trade, of imitation, and, inevitably, of family. As we conclude this journey into our prehistoric soul, what is the ultimate lesson of the Oase cave and the braided stream of human evolution? It is a lesson of humility. We are not the end product of a solitary march toward perfection. We are a collective. Every one of us walking the earth today, unless of 100% recent African descent, carries a piece of the Neanderthal. Many of us carry the Denisovan. We are the survivors of a grand, multi-species experiment. This realization should change how we view ourselves and each other. If the pure sapiens is a myth, then the foundations of many of our modern prejudices about race, about purity, about us versus them, begin to crumble. If our very survival as a species depended on our ability to integrate with those who are different, then integration is not just a social ideal, it is a biological mandate. The story of Oase tells us that the most human thing we ever did was to reach across the divide. In the freezing dark of the Ice Age, Our ancestors chose connection over isolation. They chose to weave their stories together. We are not the people who replaced the Neanderthals. We are the people who became with them. We are the braided stream. And as long as we carry their DNA, as long as we study their bones and honor their memory, they are not truly gone. They live on in the way we think, the way we fight disease, and the way we look at the fire and wonder about the dark. The next time you look in the mirror, don't just see a modern human. See the survivor of an epic saga. See the brow of the hunter, the jaw of the survivor, and the spirit of a lineage that refused to be alone. We are a tapestry of the ancient world, and that is a much more beautiful story than the one of the solitary victor. Our past is not a museum of dead branches, but a living forest of intertwined roots. The shock of hybridization is over. Now, the era of understanding begins. We are the Neanderthal. We are the sapiens. We are the Denisovan. We are, and have always been, a work in progress.